Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the channel. Hopefully, everyone is having a great day. Oh, I got to remove that graphic right there. Oh, yep, because I'm not doing that stuff anymore. So let's remove that. All right. But hopefully, everyone is having a great day. But welcome. My name is Adam Welch. I am a cinematographer, filmmaker, content creator, and of course, on this channel, we do a lot of different things. Probably, if you've joined me before, we were doing some gaming. On some previous streams, we were talking about camera stuff and lighting stuff and cinematography and some projects I was working on. Today, we're hopping into Final Cut Pro 12. Over the years, I've used a wide variety of different editing softwares. Primarily been using Premiere for the last 14 years. Initially, when I started getting into filmmaking and video production, I actually learned on Avid Media Composer. I used that for a number of years. Was really good at it. Could pump out edits pretty quickly. But once I started working at a TV station here back in my home state, I started using Premiere Pro because that's what they were using. And since then, that's what I've been using. But with how much it is costing monthly for the creative, package, and with the recent release of the creator package from Apple, I decided to kind of test. Well, I don't know if I would necessarily say test out the waters because I'm kind of jumping face first. I've already canceled my Adobe subscription and I'm just throwing myself directly into Final Cut Pro 12. I haven't used Final Cut since Final Cut 7, so it's definitely definitely a change because they do things quite a bit differently. I don't know, of those of you out there who have done a lot with Final Cut since Final Cut X, but they've done a lot of changes since Final Cut 7, and it's a bit different, and it takes a little bit of changing your thought process to really, I guess, wrap your mind around it. I'm definitely not as fast in Final Cut right now as I was in Premiere because it's definitely not the same. So we can go ahead and hop over to that. And what I've done here is I've actually taken a project that I had previously done in Premiere. Actually, I edited it in Premiere, and then I had sent it over to DaVinci Resolve for some color grading, and then I sent it back to Premiere for some final tweaks and some audio work. And so I brought it into here, and I'm kind of taking a look at how they have everything set up. The one thing that you notice is there's no preview window now. You basically have this one window that is basically the same window for everything. It does kind of throw me off because you're used to kind of scrubbing things over here, doing your in and out, and bringing it down to the timeline. And now it's a bit different. Another thing is you don't have what's called projects, and I know when initially I learned about that, it kind of really threw me off because you're used to projects. Now they call it libraries, and when you think libraries, you think a whole different kind of process. And after watching some other YouTube videos and stuff like that, I kind of figured out that you basically approach libraries like you would a project file. I've basically named this the same as I did the Premiere project file. It's located in the exact same location, and with all the same files and everything like that. So you can basically treat it the same. The one thing that's super wonky though, if we go into the modify settings here, is the cache. When you create a new file, it puts all the cache within the library file. And the problem that I've kind of, been diving in and figuring out with that is now your project file is huge. It's ginormous. Not the small file that it would be easily dragged around and stuff like that. So I'm gonna look at it here real quick. Yeah, it's a 58 gigabyte. Let me actually, you see it right up here too. It's 58 gig file because of all the cache that is incorporated into it. So and I wish, like, the one thing I wish I could figure out that I have not figured out yet is a default a default setting for the cache location is something haven't figured out. You can go in and you can modify the cache location so that it's in a different spot, so that it's no longer in the same file, to make it a little bit, I guess, easier to manage. But I have not figured out, a different, because you basically, what you ultimately have to do is you have to do that when you go to create a new library. When you go to create a new library, it brings up a window, where do you want to save it? And it's at that time you need to make the decision of where it's going to save the cache, the cache. And it's like, okay, media, it's importing the media into there as well as the other problem. And it's like, I don't want it to import all these files into it, is basically the thing. It's like it's all located in here, and to me, that's not how I want to manage it. So that's definitely one thing that, like, basically the whole project setup is something I need to learn. Basically, the best approach moving forward. It's like I said, I've been watching some other YouTube videos trying to get the best premise, the best approach to moving forward with Final Cut. I actually have done one complete edit in here. I was my short film that I finished up recently. I finished it up in DaVinci. I actually brought the files over into Final Cut, and I've been messing around. I've not messing around, but I've been creating my trailer for my short film within Final Cut, and it's definitely been a bit of a learning curve. Like, the one thing that throws me off, like, even just being down here on the timeline, just outright, is like zooming in and out. It's like, it to me, it doesn't seem like it's an easy, I guess, easy approach. Is like, you can click Z or select zoom up here, and you can highlight, to go into those areas. But then it's like, to me, getting back out from that is part of the, it's like, if I go do this, it's zooming back in. It's like, okay, I'm used to, doing, plus and negative to be able to zoom in quickly, or use it from the mouse. And it's like, okay, there's no quicker way to zoom in. So, like, that's definitely another thing I would really like to kind of, I guess, figure out, is a quicker way to zoom in and out, because that right now, this definitely slows me down quite a bit trying to get in and out of clips. But, in general, I have liked some of the features. Like, one of the features that, I wish I had an example to dive into, is they have, like, the beat detect, which is, like, perfect if you're trying to, do a hype reel or something like that, where you can detect the beats in the music. It also allows you to not only, align your edits with the beats, it allows you to take the music and slice it up at the appropriate points to be able to, edit the music according to your clips. But let's go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. Like, I'm still trying to get the keyboard shortcuts. I got it, off to the side over here. I have it pulled up. But then it's like, how it sometimes shifts all of this. It's like, I don't necessarily like it shifting. It's like, I grab this and it's shifting all of that. Oops. I messed that up. Let's re-import that. And it's super easy to import. You know, once you got the XML file and you go to import it and you bring it in, takes a little bit to, you know, import. Of course, it has some issues with a few things. But the other thing I noticed, okay, when you go to do that, is that what don't you have? I don't see any of my associated files. It's like all I see is the finished project, which to me is like super weird. If I need to grab a different clip, it's not there. I'd have to go back through and re-import all the clips and import this, you know, timeline separately. Now, I think some of this stuff, is this the one that needs to be enabled? Can I solo this? Because that would be good right now if I could solo this clip.
I mean, I'm not saying you're not fresh. I mean, a new voice. Oh, there's.
Because there's all these other clips. Disable all of those. Because I'm pretty sure that this.
You know what the first requirement for legend
Where is that music coming from?
status is, don't you, Gary? You gotta be old, and I qualify.
Because is that in corporate?
Maybe you could work me into another time slot.
That's interesting. Because I was pretty sure that this is the full clip from this. I mean, I'm bringing stuff over and still trying to learn stuff, but I figured, you know, hopping back into old projects that I've worked on would be the appropriate way to get into this. But it seems like there's some stuff that's all kind of wonky here. I don't know where some of this audio is coming from. It'd be nice if I could solo this. Like if there was an option to do a solo. To ensure that this is the only clip playing. Well, that's that. So that is a single clip there. But it's not showing. So here, doesn't look like there's any associated audio, although that audio is down there. Let's see here. Because
Maybe this radio thing wasn't the ride I had.
okay, so what we got here is this needs to be cropped over like that because you definitely lost some of your, you know, some of the settings it had before.
This retirement thing, it reminds me of that old Peggy Lee song. Is that all there is? You've got a great following, man. Done some.
But the one thing I noticed, at least with this part of the crop, no, that's trim. So I need to trim it, but there's not a way to, like I need to feather that line a little bit is what it looks like I need to do. It's like I'm, you know, trying to work through where the different settings are, how to do things differently. So you got distortion, you got stylized, tiling. That's all video stuff. Looks, distortion. Because what I need is Masking and keying. Corner gradient mask. Is that what I tried to use before? I think that might have been what I used before. Let's see. And let's get rid of this because we're going to mess with this right here. Then his leg's not quite right. It's kind of interesting. But I think that is what I used in my other project that I was messing with. Where because I've done this kind of split screen things a couple times. And that does seem better. I wonder if I can get my other monitor over here and see if I can turn this on. See if I can output. Is there an output setting? Playback. I might need to install a new plugin for Final Cut here to be able to get it to output correctly. But if anybody has any questions on what I'm doing here, Final Cut, my experience, cinematography, any of that kind of stuff, feel free to ask. That's why I call it Cinematography AMA, Ask Me Anything. So feel free to throw out your questions as we kind of just dive in here and figure out some of this stuff here.
Roger, enjoy your last shift. And then let's celebrate with cake and ice cream and fun stories. Like it should be.
I need to double check if that is part. I don't know. I'm not recalling all that music playing during it, but it's been a while since I've watched this. So I'm going to pull up. Yeah, so that music should not be playing. So why is that playing? This has to be a different file then. That has to be a different file than what was finally used. Let's see here. If I have this one. It looks like to be the same exact thing though. Seems to be the exact same file to this file. Whoa, holy snozberry. And this is the other thing that throws me off. You bring in, and it puts it in this long, mode. See, that does look exactly the same.
Okay?
All right.
It's like, where is that music coming from? That's why I wish there was I need a solo mode. Just play this clip only. Because I'm pretty sure.
The myth.
Oh, Gary, give me a break.
Okay, let's go with legend.
Can I talk to you about that?
Of course.
Yeah, so it does not have, that file does not have it in there. That, we're going to enable the clip here. So somewhere is that music, and I'm not entirely sure where that's embedded in there, because I thought I disabled all of the other audio. Let's see, if I select all this down here, if I just go ahead and delete all of that. Oops. It's going to tell me that it doesn't like it. It's like, no, You must complete other tasks before performing that. Okay, interesting. Yeah, there's something playing that I can't figure out what it is. But, let's see here. The one thing, another thing is, they don't have bins. Instead of bins, they have events. So, and I wish they didn't create the date one by default. The one thing I have been kind of doing is to keep my stuff organized relatively the same way is create events, in the same way I would previously have done, raw video. We can call this, we'll rename this. Create another event. We'll just call it audio. Because then what I can do is I can take this audio and put it in there. Keep it, to keep things organized in the same basically manner that I previously did. I mean, you can still click on the bigger outro and see everything listed or whatever your library is named. But I definitely would still try to keep a lot of your same process as you had previously done in Premiere. I've always created bins. It was kind of one of the first things I had ever learned to do when it comes to editing is organize. Not only organize your folder structure outside of your editing software, but also within your editing software, organize it. And basically, it's like I do a one-for-one match. I have the same folder names in my folder structure that I do within my project. Or in this case, we call it a library. And of course, I could have a subfolder or something like that, blah, blah, blah. And they organize everything by date by default. Let's see, we're going to want to also create a new event. We'll call it projects. Or we could call them, like we always have called them, sequences. And we can go up here or go to this one and move this right into there. Of course, it doesn't want to right now because it's still trying to go through and import everything. It's like, I don't really want you to import all those files. So let's move you down there. Now, the one thing I would say is, in general, it does seem like it moves pretty fast. Like you go to, scrub anything around, and your playback.
And Delbert McClinton's got to be the best.
Your playback is pretty nice. So I'm gonna disable any of the audio right now.
Run down through the terminal, jump.
Yeah. So it looks like. So do that. I feel like we have some audio clips that are hiding places. That's why I wish I could figure out how to do solo track. Option S.
This is the incomparable.
There we go.
Is this really who I am?
It's definitely, there's going to be a plethora of, like, I feel like I need to find a cheat sheet and stuff like that too. Now the question is, how do I undo that clip? You can bring into Audition. Break apart items, huh? I want to unsolo. And it doesn't look like there's a way to unsolo that. Probably, once again, a keyboard shortcut. That's going to be the thing that's going to kill me. Is that what that's for? Solo the selected track. Ah, okay. Skimming. Do.
So, what ghost are you?
Yeah, there's files. There's something that's missing that I can't figure out exactly what. But that's neither here nor there when it comes to this. What we're gonna do is we're going to actually first before we do that, see sequences. We're gonna need a new project file. It's going to be example. We're going to dump it in there, and then we're going to import some media here into the raw folder. Let's go over to our video storage. And let's see, what do we want to pull up? Projects. I want to pull up some of this conservation stuff. Leave in place. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like I want to leave in place. I do not want to copy files into the project or into the library, however, whatever you want to call it. Interesting. So you're saying... Interesting. So I am not able to pull in red files by themselves. And 3D Final Cut Pro. All kinds of little stuff. Let's see, to import. So first, it looks like I need this installer tool. Apple Workflow Installer. Accept all. Hopefully this still works, because this is from October. Always something. I remember when this was a big thing for like almost any type of file you would ever try to like. It wants me to restart my computer. It's not going to happen right now. Basically, like any kind of file you would use to import, even into Premiere, you used to have a plugin for everything. I mean, Media Composer was the same way. It kind of stinks that it still seems to be that way with red files, but we can, let's see here. We can hop into a different project. Let's see here. Conservation, no. We can go look at some of these. Let's see, do I have... Got some files here that we can bring in from my short film. Just go ahead and drop all of that stuff in there. But so like this is the interesting part. So you have your clip, and it's like, okay, how do you do your in and out? You can still do in and outs, you still do I and O, but as you see what it's doing, it's changing its position on here. You can also do, you can also drag on either end of the clip to do in and out, and then you just, drag it down, and then it, snaps into place. That's one thing that's going to take a little bit to, get used to. It's like, okay, stop, in, replay, or out, in, okay, then, drag it down. But then the thing I've noticed is if you're not careful, it restretches the thing. It's like you really got to make sure you grab it right in the center before dragging it down there. I think that's the full length of that clip. But then if you got another clip and you want to put it in between, it's pretty nice. It just, see, you can hover it right into that spot. It'll open it up and drop it in. So it's pretty nice to be able to, how quickly you can move some of these clips around to be able to. Of course, I'm behind that, so let's drop. That's behind my image right there. So let's drop some more clips real quick onto the timeline, just so you can see what everything looks like. Actually, what we're gonna do, let's go into the studio mode. Let's hide my camera for a second. There we go. Just so you can see the whole timeline here. But it's like super simple to move stuff around. The one thing that I don't like, that I'm still not used to, is you go to move a clip and how it does that. How it instantly moves it up, or like it compresses it. It has its positives and its negatives for sure, because if you want to like pull out this clip, it instantly closes it. But now what you're stuck with is this, your everything moved. It moved everything over. And then you have it creating these like extra boxes all the time. Let's see. Let's go ahead and delete everything out of here. What we're going to do, we're going to grab all this. And let's kind of just do that. And just kind of drag everything down there. Now you got, if you have some B-roll that you want to throw over top, you can easily just, drop it in above. Same thing as if you have some, audio that you want to drop in, you can drop it in, just below. And, it's in some ways, like, it's definitely, once I get used to it, I will be able to edit a lot, really fast. Pretty much probably about the same speed that I once did, but it's some of the small nuances of how this operates different from Premiere that will take some getting used to. I definitely want to make sure that I am setting up my projects the same way every single time, and I'm not having it, import all the files, into the project file, because that's going to make it like huge. Make sure, all the cache files are saved off to the side so I can manage those separately. Make sure I'm still doing bin organization. Let me take all these audio files here and put it over into audio. Keep everything, set up relatively the same way that I've previously done. Got sequences, also called projects here, but I'm calling them sequences. I can call them probably timeline, or if I wanted to, I could keep it with the naming convention that they're going with. Of course, another folder I would always generally have would be stills. This is generally how I would set up most of my projects, is just with these, simple items to keep everything nice and organized. But you can also do some pretty nice, searches for people. It's like, let's see if I can, let's do by visual, and we're going to do see if I put two shot. Nope. Let's go close up. And that's what it pulls up for close-ups. even though you have some other shots that would be probably relatively close-ups. Let's see if we do a medium. And this is what is considering medium, but it also pulled in the one shot that it considered a close-up. So it's, I mean, definitely not perfect, but if you're trying to, look for a shot quicker, let's see if I say black clothes. Nope. Hooded. I'm trying to see if it can pull up on the hooded figure, but it doesn't seem to be able to do that. What if I do ball? Nope. Red. So it picked up on that red there, but it doesn't see. But I don't know where else it's thinking something red is. All right, let's do chair. Let's see if I type in chair. So you got the chair in that shot, chair in that shot, chair in that shot. But I'm not seeing the chair in this shot. Of course, this shot is panning between chair and everything else. If you watch that, it goes, bounce there, bounce there. And actually, if you keep following that shot, it goes back to a shot of the chair. Now, this shot also does not seem to have a chair in it, but it's still, I don't know, it's not perfect, but I definitely think long term, being able to put in, what you're looking for into the search up here will speed things up. Let's see if I do extreme tight. Nope. Tight shot. Nope. It seems to pick up on close up though. Close. That's interesting. For close, it picks up on this single shot. Even though if I try to do hood, it doesn't do that. Black, nothing, It doesn't pick up the word ball either. If I do two shot, it doesn't pick up on two shot. Even though I know we have this two shot that's in the film, but it's not picking up on that. Now let's see, we got a shot of the hands. Hand. It picks up on hand, but it doesn't pick up on hand, which is interesting. So you got hands. Of course, hands there, those hands there, so it's able to pick up on those. All right, let's go for text. Let's see what it does for text. Broken. That's not able to pick on that. Let's see, what's something on that wall? It's probably not able to pick that up too well. Because you have this shot, and it's probably not able to completely interpret what's in that shot there. But let's see. What if I type in book? Actually, let's go back to visuals and go book. So it's able to pick up book. That's interesting. I put book, but it picked up on this right there. What if I type in chalk? And so it's able to pick up on chalk. It's able to see this as chalk too. But it was not able to see that or the words in that file or in that video clip. Let's try another. Let's see. Let's try bulb. Nope. What if we do light? Nope. Light bulb. So it's not able to see this. But like I said, it's not necessarily perfect, but you're able to, find things maybe a little bit quicker than you might have previously been able to in other software, since it's able to go through and kind of check everything, or not really check, but review things that are in the shot. Now, another nice thing is you can tag these clips too. If I can remember exactly how to edit rolls. Nope. Raw. That's interesting. It saw this one as raw. I guess it is a raw bulb, is what this is. But you type in raw, and it's almost picking up on this person's emotion. That's you could view that either one of these as raw emotions. But I like the clips being this size, is what I've noticed. Even though if you stretch them, you can have them stretched out further. Let's see if I can. Not like that. Where is that? Is it this one? Yeah, this one. Like you can stretch these out pretty far. So then you can like really look through the clips. If you're trying to look for a specific spot within the clip, you're able to see quite a bit. But it's like if I'm clicking around in here anyway, I'm going to more than likely be looking over here in this monitor. So it's like why, there's really no reason for me to, have them this big. And that's why I've been setting them, about this big, about, when it's 30 seconds wide, if you want to call it that, is basically what I've been setting it at when I've been messing around. I haven't completely committed to any project to Final Cut Pro yet, since I'm still in the early learning stages of using the software. But I definitely think, I've already basically committed to using it since I've gotten rid of my Adobe subscription. I'm not paying for that anymore. That my license actually, I think, ends sometime in February. So, I still have a couple weeks where I could ultimately change my mind and, resubscribe to, to the Adobe package. But, you're paying $12.99 for, all these, Apple tools, and they seem to do a decent job there. There's definitely elements that are missing. Like, as we saw, we tried to pull in a, red file, directly into Final Cut, and it did not want to do that. You need to install a plugin to be able to get it to work, which kind of, to me, is a little old school because that's something you had to do back in the day, not something I would expect to have to necessarily worry about with a modern editing software because everything else seems to be able to natively take that all in. But that's, to some degree, a small price to pay if I'm able to, work just as efficiently in Final Cut and I'm able to, pay quite a bit, less monthly. The other thing is trying to figure out which one of these, basically figuring out the effects that are available. I'm so used to, oh, hey, there we go. Crop and feather. That was actually the one I was looking at before. I'm going to hop over to this other timeline for like right here. Let's look at this crop and feather. Drop that right there. So if the width, okay, no. So that is completely cropping both sides. So I don't know if I necessarily like that. Because what I really need is a type of crop that only crops it from one side. Because so far, the only thing I've noticed that really seems to work if I'm trying to, take a two-shot and you cut them in half is using where is it? The gradient mask is the one I've been messing around with to get this to work how I need it to. And it's kind of it's a little wonky to get this to work exactly how I need it to. Like so, something like right about there to get these to, do the kind of split screen with two different people. That's why it's definitely going to be a matter of time before I completely, commit to a project being on here because it's like, okay, is the gradient mask the best? Is the image mask the best? Because I don't, let's see, we're going to go ahead and let's remove the gradient mask and see how the image mask works any differently. Okay, so you got some limitations there, it looks like. I can't go any farther over than that. So that one definitely would not work. So far, it seems like the gradient mask is the best, the best option. Well, that's interesting. You got the scene removal thing here, which that could be pretty darn handy for certain things. It was actually a commercial clip I saw recently that I'm like, with today's modern tools, it's a lot easier to do masking and cropping people out, be it green screen or, like in this case, the scene masking that it's doing. Kind of curious to see how this works. So reference first frame, last frame. Huh. So I wonder what exactly it's picking up on there to try to mask. Huh. It's interesting. But if you guys have any questions or, be it with Final Cut Pro, be it with, lighting, gear, any of that kind of stuff, feel free. This kind of just hopping on here, chatting some things up, talking about different things. I'm pretty sure this film has already made its round when it comes to all the different film festivals that we were going to submit it to. Actually, another thing, let's see, I want to look at, okay, you got color grading presets, but I do not use. So what do we got here for color conform? No. So you can change if you want HD to that. Okay, you can do none. Transform. What I'm looking for is, take out looks. No, I don't want looks. Color board. So let's see here. It's like, so where are those tools located? Show and workspace, events, audio meters. Yeah, audio meter is something, another thing I'd like to have left on all the time.
Great following, man. Done some things.
But that's not what I'm looking for. So you got view, Luma, no, overlay. Don't need any kind of custom overlays. Show HDR mapping, nope. Hide rejected. Waveform, there we go. Showing viewer. Showing event. Waveforms. So you can show waveform. So event viewer, show and viewer angles, both sides, custom channels, color channels. Okay, Windows workspaces, default, color and effects. I want to see what you switch it over to color and effects here. Got gradient, got transport, crop. There we go. Okay, so we got this for color grading. That's one thing. It's like I don't like using any kind of plugin to do. The only thing is this has already been graded within DaVinci, so it's not like I'm going to be really doing anything different. So you got the enhance button, which I'm not doing anything with. So my question is, what do we have for? Do we have anything for like loading a LUT? Because that's what I'm used to. It's like, okay, I can load corrections, color wheels. Ooh, color wheels. I like that. Okay. You got color wheel options, color curves. Let's see if you don't want that, can you delete that correction? Okay, so you can delete that correction. You can delete that correction. No corrections, adjustments, color adjustments, which is this one. Delete that. But what if I want to load in a LUT? That is the question here. Luma key, let's see. Color grading, load a LUT. So should we list it under camera LUTs? Because you got color grading presets. Which I've not seen that there. Yeah, okay, under color. Color wheels, custom LUT. There we go. So if I drop a custom LUT onto there, and there we go. Let's see. Choose a LUT. I can go find a LUT. I have all my LUTs in my folder. Presets and templates and LUTs. Of course, all of these are for all kinds of different things. Let's actually add something that's not going to be too crazy. Let's do a tonal. Let's see. Let's view this in a list. Let's do this one. So you see it did a little bit of, I want to see, can I copy that over into a different clip? Doesn't look like I can, at least from what but I can easily re-add that to it. You don't necessarily mind that too much. You could actually roll it back, put it at about 50%. And watch that clip real quick.
You know what the first requirement for legend status is, don't you, Gary? You gotta be old. And I qualify.
So I definitely don't mind that one at all. Let's actually try it on a different spot. Like this. On this shot right here, let's load custom, custom LUT right on that. See what that looks like. Oof. In that particular case, it looks like a little too much. But like I said, I've already gone through and graded these, so it's like this is kind of really messing with what I'm trying to do. But now at least I know that is listed under color, under custom LUT. Whoa. Too bad it's not actually incorporated into the color correction section here, but I guess I can kind of understand if you're wanting to keep those separate, but I wish it did not show up under the effects settings here or the video inspector, because I wish it was part of the color process here. But at least we know that's where, I mean, because even if we go back, let's see, if we go back to, okay, we did that, but now that window is still open. I want that to go away. Let's see, view, browse. There we go. So you still have access to the color stuff, but if you're trying to, if you're needing the scopes, you can actually re-add them in the viewer mode here, or the event view mode. Kind of stretch it out there, but I don't know. I don't necessarily like this setup. I kind of like switching the workspace over to the color mode better than I do, throw in the scopes right there, because then you lose all that. I mean, but the other thing is, normally I have this spread across my widescreen monitor, so I have a lot more workspace than generally what I'm dealing with right here. So I would have more room normally to have those scopes in the middle, my browsing over here and the program monitor over here. Of course, they call it the viewer. It's not, they don't call it the program monitor because you're not really differentiating between, preview and program anymore. You're dumping it, all into the same viewer, regardless if you're, let's, for instance, you're scrubbing these clips or you're looking down here. It's like, it's all kind of all in the same monitor, which, I mean, to kind of think about it, there has been many cases, if I look back, that I don't necessarily use the preview window, the preview monitor, as much as I probably think I do. I mean, I know I use it for, marking in and out and then dragging stuff down, but I mean, with how you're able to do that right here within, your browsing, you basically don't really necessarily need to have that that separate monitor, because you can easily jump back and forth pretty quickly. I do want to see how it works when I have the Blackmagic plugged in, and see how that works out. But I mean, it's part of this whole field, though. It's like you're always learning. You're always trying out new gear, new software. There's always something new to, take in. And I'm doing this, for a cost saving measure to save a little bit of money. But then it's, causing me to have to, rethink my approach to editing to some extent. So I think it keeps your mind fresh, keeps you always trying new different things. But, if you're a Mac user, I would say at least try it out, because you can try it out for, a period of time before you actually have to start paying for it, which is nice, because not only do you get this application, you get, Logic Pro, you get MainStage, you get Motion, you get Pixelmator Pro, which Pixelmator Pro is kind of like their version of Photoshop, while Motion is kind of like their version of After Effects. Definitely lots of little nuances with all of them. I've hopped in them all and been kind of messing around to try to figure out the workflow, figure out what works for me. But it's just a matter of just finding where all the little tools are, all the little buttons, where all the keyboard shortcuts are. It's kind of like when I've told people about cameras. Like, I've used a whole wide variety of different cameras, from Arris to Canon to Sony's, to Nikon's, all over the place. And what it always boils down to is finding where the different buttons and are located, and where all the different menus are. And it's the same thing with editing. It's like the fundamentals of editing, like kind of the mental process of going through an edit, is the same. It's just, where is that knob? Where is that button? Where is that keyboard shortcut? Where is that, effects? Where is, this panel? That's all it really boils down to. And, I know when I made the leap from Media Composer to Premiere initially, even though there was, there's similarities into the approach, the layout has similarities. It was still it took me a little bit to adjust and get super proficient with Premiere. Well, now we're doing this next move over into Final Cut, and it's going to definitely take me probably about the same amount of time, just constant editing, hopping in here and building things, doing all my work within Final Cut to be able to become comfortable and confident in doing stuff. I mean, right now, if I had to do a project, right now, would I be able to complete it? Yeah, no problem. I'd be able to get it, exported, color graded, audio, the whole shebang. It just might take me a little bit longer than it normally would in Premiere, just because I'm still trying to get adjusted to all the nuances of where everything is located. I mean, even just something as small as doing, audio adjustments, hopping in here, and it's like, okay. I mean, they still have the whole drag down that you can do over here, but you also have all these settings over here that you can dive into. How does all of these kind of play out? You got, volume adjustment up here. And you also have this, this interesting thing that it does is it pulls up this, audio configuration, which is pretty interesting. Like if you had a clip that had multiple audio tracks in it, let's import something as an example. Let's see, projects. I'm trying to think of an example. Well, let's go to the Freedom Forum, because I should have something here. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll import this one clip. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop this on the end here. And we're going to go back over here. Actually, over to the audio. So, like you see here, we have 8 different dialogues, or dialogue, what it's considering dialogue audio. And what the reason of this being is because when you record on the FX6, by default, you have 8 different audio tracks, and generally, I'm only using one. So what you can do is you can disable all the audio tracks and then select the one that you want to use. Usually, number 1 is normally where I have the lav or whatever my primary audio is mainly on track 1. So you're able to basically go in here and disable whatever you're not using and select what you're going to use. Now the thing I find interesting is if you go down here to this clip, how it shows everything all mixed together. Now you can have it spread all that stuff out too, if I can remember which one of those it is. We need to shift this effects panel over here. Yeah, expand audio. So then you can see that. Then you can see expand audio components, and then you can see all the different audio. Then you can go ahead and disable it, and only see what you need to see. I definitely find this, this is one thing that is definitely a lot quicker than what it was in Premiere, because in Premiere I had to even before I dropped it down to the timeline, I would have to go in and make the adjustments. I mean, I'd have to open up the adjust audio and select which channels I want to use, so it's not bringing in anything I don't want to use. In this case, I can still do that, but I can also do it after the fact super easily, just from opening up the audio configuration over here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this clip. Now, another thing you might think is like, okay, what if I have, multiple, timelines or sequences, whatever you want to call it. And you can basically, you have this, drop down where you can, close, other timelines. You can duplicate your project, but to open up your other project completely, you have to basically just click these little arrows, which is like I find to be pretty neat because now it keeps things a little bit more organized than if you were like stacking all these timelines. Now, of course, you might have an instance where you're thinking, well, maybe I want to be able to see them side by side for comparison. I currently don't have an answer for you for that because, like I said, still kind of learning the ropes when it comes to Final Cut Pro. But so far, I've feeling decent about it. I mean, but of course, after 14 years of using Premiere Pro, it's definitely I'd almost call it like a shock. It is definitely a shock in how some of the aspects of it functions compared to Premiere, and I mean, it's not necessarily bad, and it's not like Premiere is necessarily better. I mean, Premiere has its problems, and I would almost say playback being one of them. That's one thing I'm loving about this. Let's quiet the audio for that for a moment. But like the playback, I like how just easily I can scrub through things. I'm still on a Mac Studio M1. I do need to pull in some red files and see how well it plays those back at full resolution. I still have some tweaks I got to figure out. I still got to figure out my Blackmagic output on here. We have a general understanding of audio adjustments, color adjustments, where we can do LUT, where about how we can adjust audio, that kind of mixing. And, we have our organizing of our, what they call events now instead of bins. We got that all kind of figured out. We got, how to set up projects to figure it out. Now, the library thing, I do wish I could find a quicker solution to the settings here, because I do not like how, this file's getting stinking huge because of, where it's putting everything. It's like, okay, let's modify storage settings. It's like, I don't want choose. It's like, I don't want it to, it's like, I don't want it to store it in there. I want all the media to stay where it is. And there doesn't seem to be a real clear option for that, which is something I'm going to have to put on my to-do list of things to check on. Now, some of these things, it didn't import everything quite right, but I would say in general, coming out of the DaVinci is what we did, and into Final Cut here, it did a pretty decent job. Those round trips can always be problematic. You just got to make sure you are selecting Final Cut X when you're exporting out of DaVinci and bringing stuff in. Now there is a problem going from Premiere to Final Cut Pro. If you're trying to transfer projects over, you actually need a separate application, because for whatever reason, it is still Premiere still outputting for Final Cut 7. So that XML file cannot be brought into Final Cut Pro 12 without some kind of conversion. It's not working. Now, you could do the annoying thing and go from Premiere to DaVinci and back, then into Final Cut. But right now, there's not like a direct path out of Premiere into Final Cut. I don't know, like, if there, anything in the roadmap for that. I don't know why they still have it saying Final Cut 7 in Premiere. But that's definitely something that would be nice that they could fix, because I would like to be able to, take some of my old projects that I might, want to hop back into and bring them over here. Examples I'm thinking are like my demo reel, or some of my other projects that I, my social media projects I do, that I use continuously. It would be nice to bring some of those over if they're already ready to go. But right now you have to have a separate application. And I wish I remember what it was called. It's, something to X, or because you're taking the XML file from Premiere and reformatting it for Final Cut X and above, and that's really kind of your only option right now if you are wanting to make the leap from Premiere to Final Cut Pro 12. But that's really all I can think of, so far. It's like I said, I'm going to have to continue to play with this. I really need I need a big project to build from the ground up, to really kind of figure out and understand Final Cut Pro. I mean, like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, I was working on editing a trailer for my short film. You actually see some of the clips up here. I built that all in Final Cut. Learned some stuff, kind of tackled some issues that I couldn't figure out. There's going to definitely be a lot of YouTube video watching and a lot of Googling in the future as I continue to, figure everything out. But I would say in general, I got the general premise down of, how to do things. I have things organized relatively the same way that I have in the past with my bins, or as Final Cut calls them, events. And we have our items all separated out. I'm still calling them sequences, even though they call it projects. Because I'm trying to, I guess, figure out the best naming convention. Do I keep it how I've always done it, or do I change it to match what Final Cut's using? We have where all our settings are for all our clips. We learned quite a bit about how to manage different audio channels. We know where our color adjustments are, how to load in custom LUTs. What they call the storyline, or primary storyline, and secondary storyline, all that stuff is something I'm still kind of figuring out. Definitely something to play with, because you can basically create a storyline, have this be a storyline, and now it's like you can it can kind of have things attached to it in a different manner than previously. Like you see, it's like, okay, it doesn't really, it's kind of locked in where you put it, since it's a storyline item. You can't really, so it's like, that's something I gotta, I guess, figure out exactly how and when to use those settings. And then you can basically turn this storyline into the primary storyline, which currently this should be the primary storyline. Let's say what's a lift storyline. It's interesting. Like I said, I think the biggest thing that's going to really help is going over all the keyboard shortcuts, because that's, I feel like, where a lot of your speed's going to come from, is knowing all the keyboard shortcuts. And in the past, like, I learned some of the keyboard shortcuts, like for Premiere, by having one of those keyboards with all the buttons on it. And I don't know if that's necessarily the option. Like, do I get a Final Cut keyboard, with all the stuff on it, or do I get a cheat sheet with all the stuff on it? But I think that's definitely going to be one of the key elements to help speed up. Sadly, like I have this shuttle that doesn't seem to really do much for like, and I don't know if it's because I got to change what it's doing, but it does not seem to like really do much for Final Cut 10, and so it's not something I'm going to probably really be using much anymore. But I think we are going to call that a stream. I appreciate everyone hanging out. Feel free to subscribe to my channel for all different kinds of content that I make on here. This channel is kind of my personal channel where I have a mix of filmmaking stuff, gaming stuff, Lego stuff, a whole kind of slew of things. If you're wanting to follow more of my filmmaking projects, I would go over to Welch Film. That's where I have most of my, where all my strictly filmmaking content is going to live moving forward. But yeah, if anybody has any questions before we close anything up, just feel free to ask. But yeah, I think, even with all its, oddities and differences, I'm going to be, fine with Final Cut. And maybe eventually to some extent, I enjoy it a lot more than Premiere. It definitely seems to be pretty stable compared to Premiere, at least what I've used for it so far. But I'm going to go ahead and head off, and I will see everyone next time.